Ready. All right. Well, hi, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Krysti Reece. I am DMS faculty here at Triton and also the chair of the Academic Assessment Committee. I'm really representing the online committee today, though, to talk about discussion boards, journals, and wikis. So before we get started, because I have it set up to really go two different directions. It's a short, brief meeting, but I just kind of wanted to get an idea of what you guys need or are looking for when it comes to today's discussion. So I guess my first question would be, how familiar are you with setting these things up? So I don't know, Cora, you want to go first? Jenny? Or raise of hands, however you want to facilitate that.
I'm really familiar with the discussion board and journals, but not the wikis.
Perfect. John, how about you?
I'm familiar with all three, but I just haven't added many of them to my shells yet. So I just wanted to see how you're using them.
Perfect. All right. So pretty much I'm just going to talk a little bit about best practices and different things that I do in the classroom, and then I have a share screen slide where we can either share the screen and I'll walk you through a setup of some or an example, or we'll just kind of have conversations. So I want this to be very, very open and very fluid as far as us navigating through. So ideally, by the end of this, you'll be able to develop a discussion board assignment utilizing Blackboard, journal utilizing Blackboard, and then a wiki. So again, just going over some of the ways that I use them in the classroom. I use all three. I will say that I probably use journals the least, but I'm starting to use them more because I really have seen the value in the classroom of incorporating those into everyday practice. So when we talk about discussion boards, just some tips for success, and I had a feeling that by this point in ERL, we're using them so much, it's really a good way to get in tune with our students and keep that communication going. But a couple of things as far as just tips for success would be evaluating our learning objectives and really trying to tie in those conversations that we're creating for students to those objectives. So even if maybe you've always given a worksheet for something in ERL especially, there's ways to incorporate strategically those learning objectives into different discussion boards. And a lot of it has to do with creating that right question. Right? Well, there's really no wrong question, but formatting the question to where it's not a straight this is a yes or a no or true or false or what could be a very simple answer. We want to create questions that really increase the critical thinking and the connections that students are building with the material that we're giving. And assessing the responses. So when it comes to discussion boards, I know that I am not active every single day of the week. That's a little excessive, but I do check in at least a couple times a week to see the conversations that are happening. And I by no means try and jump in and push conversation, but I do chime in occasionally when I see something really interesting going on. I'll start engaging in communication where, I pose a question. This is a great conversation. What about this? Or what if we tied it to this question? And then normally I will follow that up with an announcement saying, hey, I've posted in that discussion board this week. Make sure you check there to keep the conversation going. And those are some just kind of tips for success and ways that you can keep engaging students and keeping them on track in some situations as well. So when it comes to discussion boards, we can do so many things with them. I think that if nothing else, ERL and being remote has made us more creative as educators. Nobody can say that it hasn't. But here's a few things to consider. Changing up delivery. So for me in health careers, we do a lot of case-based information, patient scenarios, things like that. And if I do it the same way every single week, it's boring, right? The students kind of lose interest. Okay, I'll check in on Tuesday, I'll answer the question, and then have the conversation. So instead of even just those case-based things that I do, instead of giving them a patient history and images, I'll just give them a piece of the puzzle. And then after they comment, a second piece they'll be able to see. And I can kind of talk to you about how I do that when in the programming of the discussion board is they have to create a thread to see the thread. So what I've embedded as far as maybe images in there or a little bit more detail, they can't see until they give me an answer. So those are some of the ways that I've personally changed it up when it comes to those types of scenarios. I use a lot of real life scenarios, and even, you know, current events are extremely relevant because then the students can make those connections to what's going on now. COVID, again, has been a great topic of connection, changes that it's created within our field. They can read an article, watch a video, and then discuss different things. And that's the example that I'm going to show you. Consider videos. So having them create a video, embedding a video, you making a video, there's lots of options in creating these discussion boards, and they love them. I'll be honest, a lot of the self-critique stuff that I do with videos where they have to make one and upload it, whether it be for a skill or some form of presentation, really they get very engaged and interested in doing. Consider article connection. So again, that kind of goes with the timeliness of connecting what we're reading in lecture, what I'm discussing, and then finding an article that's relevant to the topic. And then considering no right answer questions. As much as students want a right answer, just those, you know, ethical questions or theoretical questions that really there's no right or wrong. It's just to get those connections built. And I actually, again, the one that I'll just kind of show you guys, I did one related in my case to COVID pandemic and the way that it impacted ultrasound imaging and imaging in general. And I gave them 2 hospital scenarios of protocols that they were using in those scenarios. And I asked them to pick a side, right? Would you go with hospital A or hospital B? And they talked about it, and they had to read an article and read the chapter and make the connections. And I was really, really impressed with their level of engagement. And at the end of the week, when it was all done and they wrapped up, I disclosed to them that I work at hospital A and hospital B. And then I gave them my opinion and why my opinion has changed since being vaccinated. So I was able to have those conversations with them, and they were really engaged, which was great to see come to fruition. Some big things when it comes to our discussion boards: make sure the question is clear and they can understand it. I have defined due dates, so every discussion opens on Monday. They have to reply by either Wednesday or Thursday, depending if they're a senior or a freshman. And then by Friday, they have to comment on those that have commented to them. And Sunday's your wrap up of the day. And I know that there's quite a few instructors that set it that way, and it's just to help students stay on task and really stay engaged in the conversation and make sure they know how many interactions should they have. If they should just log in and they think all I have to do is post one time, then they might not have those clear objectives to continue those interactions. And we want the conversation and that communication, because that's what's going to tie their knowledge to what they're discussing. So we want to keep those conversations going. All right, so that's really the basics as far as discussion boards, some tips that I have, some things that I've used in the past. So I'm going to just ask, and you can put it in the chat, screen share or just kind of collaborative discussion. What would you prefer? Screen share? That's what I had a feeling. All right, let me shut this PowerPoint down for a second, and then I'll screen share a discussion board that I have with you, and the kind of walk you through setup as well as some of the things that work. All right, so this is actually that one that I was talking about where I had the students really, it's a very long one. They're normally not this long, but really make that connection to the current pandemic, the hospital setting, and I embedded articles in there. So you'll see there's 2 articles that they had to read along with the chapter. I gave them these examples of the hospital protocols that were available, and then I was very clear with them that after they posted their opinion, they needed to review the posts of the other students, but they couldn't see them until they posted themselves, because I didn't want them just copying someone else's opinion and then going through there. And you can see also initial post is due Wednesday, comments by Friday, and comment to all of those that comment to you by Sunday. So again, pretty clear instructions. You'll see that I'm going to just kind of scroll up. Not all of mine are that lengthy, right? That's a pretty long one. But nonetheless, same thing, expectations are laid out, submit certain things by Sunday, or respond to how many classmates. Those are the important things that you want to make sure you include. I'm going to go ahead, do you guys want me to just walk through the creation of a discussion board so you know how to set those up, or do you feel like you're good on that? You're good, Jenny? All right, I'm going to go with we're good. One thing I do recommend, you see at the top here that I have a course Q&A forum, so especially with ERL, and I do it in every course, face-to-face or online or ERL. I always have the general post forum, and I recommend that you put a disclosure that if the question is personal in nature, to email you directly. So just kind of wanted to point that out, that it's in there in mine, and that's what I use as kind of a standard start off for my students. All right, let's go ahead and we will share screen again for our next topic, which is going to be journals. Get that set back up. All right, so journals. So I have used them in the past, I guess more so than I had realized. Every summer I use them for one specific course, but I've started to use them more and more. And there's been a lot of research that has said that journals have a ton of benefits, and I've actually seen them in action. So I would say that I've seen all of these. They give students a safe place to discuss topics that maybe they wouldn't feel comfortable with in an open forum. They allow the student to gain confidence and show progress depending on how you use them. And one of the ways that I use them, it really builds a solid instructor-student relationship. So with some of the questions that I pose, and I have one pulled up in the background that I'll show you after the next slide, but you can ask any questions, anything you'd like to talk about. I know another instructor uses it in a course where they talk about sexual harassment, and she's actually had a lot of students come forward. I use it in clinical courses where students can come to me if they, or I leave anything clinical you want to discuss. They can ask questions about ethical issues, or maybe something they saw and ask me, why would someone do that? And we can have those conversations in a comfortable, safe space where they don't feel like there's any judgment or anything like that going on. So those I found to be one of the best ways for me to build those connections with the students. I was actually very surprised, but I think COVID has also accentuated some of the tendencies that they're just happy to have somebody to talk to, right? We're happy to get with people on campus face to face for some of us, we were talking about earlier, but they're just happy to be able to have those conversations and those interactions. So some journal ideas. There's multiple ways that you can use journals. So you can use it to track progress. So what have you worked on? What did you struggle with this week? What's your what are you working towards? You know, you can use them for those types of things. You could outline the learning objectives, and they could say, I've worked on this week, or if they have a big project. Build a portfolio of their work. So I know that this translates well into some of the sciences and the labs where they have to do specific targeted activities every week, and they can upload those into their journal and reflect on them, and then use them later on to demonstrate a portfolio of their work. I use them personally more in the question options. So a weekly journal reflection of, here are your 3 options that you can answer. You know, what are you still questioning yourself on this week, or what material was most beneficial to you in your practice? And then I think the last one's anything you want to talk about, right? Any concerns. So those are just some ways that you can make it work. So you can make it very, very tailored to your course and tracking progress of objectives. You can make it more of a portfolio of building, or options for students just to engage in those conversations. Now, you have to answer pretty quickly to these, because next week they're going to be asking you another question. So turnaround on this, normally I have, you know, it's due on Sunday, and by Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, I've already answered them, because I know that I'm going to have a whole nother group coming through. So do you want to see an example of this? I'm guessing you're going to want to screen share. Yes, okay, good. I'll screen share this, and then I'll also show you, if you want, how I set it up. So just a second, and I will get to it. All right, so here's one of my journals that I do, and that's that weekly reflection that I was talking to you about. One thing I want to point out for this journal, and you can see there's 205 entries, so quite a few entries. Make sure your visibility is to private, and I'll show you where that's at in the settings, because most of the time these are set to private, but when you create the journal, you can set it up to where the class can see it, and I've had an instructor accidentally do that. So just know that that can occur during the design and setup. But this is an example of one that I've done. So it's a weekly reflection thread between instructor and student. So they know that it's just between us. They have a clear explanation of when it's due every Friday by 11:59. There's a total. I give them the dates that it's due. They can turn it in early, that's fine, but 1 per week. And they can choose whatever they want to reflect on based on the questions that I've given. Now, critique of my own, I would say that I probably need to be more specific with my expectation of how long should this journal be, right? Should it be a sentence, 2 sentences? I really shouldn't take off if they submit me a sentence or 2, because I wasn't clear. But I am clear in my syllabus, so that's where they get that information, but next I'll change that. Now, when it comes to creating a journal, not creating an entry, let me go back to journals. When it comes to creating a journal, again, you can name it. I'm just going to put test on there, whatever you want as far as the journal. You can type in your instructions like I did, and then make it available, limit it. This is all just like when we make assignments. And these are the factors that you're going to want to make sure that you pay attention to. So is it a monthly journal, a weekly journal? Because it does automatically set up some dates for you. Do you want users to be able to delete comments, edit or delete them? Normally, I don't check those because I want the journal to stay what it was. And if you want grading or no grading. And actually, it's funny because I'm not even seeing the option in here for the privacy, which is has popped up on multiple people's in the past. There we go. Maybe if I did grading. Nope, still not there. Okay, I'm going to make it worth 10 points. I want to see after 1 entry and then put a due date on it. You can also add rubrics. So if you have existing rubrics or want to create one, those are a great way to keep track. I don't use rubrics because mine are very communicative, and I don't normally require them personally. But you absolutely can. And I don't know why I'm not getting the option, but normally you will have an option for visibility that does say that it's not private. It's only because I'm doing this live, that's why. All right. Any questions on journals All right.
No.
No? All right. We'll move on to wikis. I think that to me seems like the one that the least amount of people use or are comfortable with. So a couple of ways that I use wikis in the classroom, I've started to just kind of equate them to Google Docs, but embedded within Blackboard. So I use them for group work, collaborative documents. So where one of the assignments I have currently going with wikis is I have each student group assigned to make a summary sheet so that they can study off of, and each group will put them as a collaborative document into the wiki. Community notes. When I have really heavy topics in physics is when I like to use this one, and I can see students are just super stressed out. I say, all right, I've already outlined some basic bullet points. You guys fill in the blanks. And I say, you know, you're responsible for 4 pieces of information, whether it is a picture or a definition or a formula. You have to enter 4 pieces of information into that wiki. And the nice thing is that these go to your grade center, so you're able to see, as long as you set them up for grading, you're able to see what changes each student individually has made. And my students, you know, they appreciate it. I look over the notes and I approve them at the end of the week saying, all right, everybody's comments are in there. Everything is accurate. You can go ahead and print, save, download, because they can do all of those things. Glossary, so if terminology is something that's relevant or important, I use it for that as well, and weekly updates or current events. So those are some other options. Personally, again, for me, probably the first 4 are ones that I use more often. I'm going to be trying to do weekly updates, hold somebody responsible over the summer. That's going to be my test, so you can't go wrong with trying new things in ERL or Blackboard. If it doesn't work, then just don't do it again. So I'm going to try weekly updates and hold somebody responsible for giving a basic recap of the week in my classes. So that's a way that I'm going to try and use it in the future. All right, I will screen share because I can already tell that's probably what you want. All right, let me show you this one. And all right, so this one that I have here, actually, I'm going to have to create one from scratch because this wiki has student names on it, or it has initials, but I don't think that I can crop the student names off live. But I'm going to create one, and then we can kind of talk about the different ways that students can adjust this. So again, creating a wiki is much like a journal and even an assignment. So test wiki, just to kind of put something there, instructions. So this is where you would put, normally I have my wikis either linked directly from assignments or the description elsewhere with the link as well, but any instructions that you would want to put here, you know, post 2 comments, and the details. If you want to make it available and restrict, those are exactly identical to assignments. And then do you want editing to be open where anybody can edit? Do you want it closed to editing to where you're the only one that can make changes? And then access. Again, do you want students to be able to comment or not? You can have ungraded wikis, or you can have the graded wikis, and then you can see that everything down here populates the same. So let me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second, and I'm going to scroll past the student name that's at the top of this, and then you can see what one live looks like. Bear with me for just a second. All right, I should be able to do this live. Sorry. All right, so this is what a wiki looks like live. You can see my instructions are there for the students, that I actually am tying this specific one to a discussion board also. So what I did was I gave students a very basic case information and left it vague intentionally. And this was to make my students act like a tech is what I told them. So in the wiki, they're supposed to put questions that they would ask a patient, observable signs, or something they would look for in the history. And once they did all these questions, I'm going to answer them. And I'm answering them tonight, and then we have class. And then we're going to continue on with the discussion board where they'll see the answers to the question, and then they'll formulate an opinion, and then they'll be able to see the images once they post their opinion. So this is a very layered one. I've not done one quite as elaborate prior to now, but they definitely have been engaged. And I even told them, yes, I know I'm being vague right now, so that they could see that. But this is what it looks like. Okay, so this was a blank piece of paper, and they all went in and put in their questions, and then they put their initials after. As much as I tell the students, they still think that I need to know who put it in, even though I can see it in the grade book. But it's fine with me. So what I can do now is I can go in there and edit the document. And I'm going to go ahead and just do that live so you guys can see it. I can hit edit, scroll down, and I can answer the question. So, no, I'm just going to answer a couple. Okay, and then when I hit submit, what'll happen is those changes that I did will be right on the document. And now those students can see exactly what I have changed on there. Ideally, when I do things like this, I'll change that later on to either bold or a different color so that they can see my responses. But essentially what happens is when you create these, you get a blank page, and they can put different information in there. You can type just like I did to create a skeleton of notes, or really go a lot of different directions, because these essentially are similar to Google Docs, and there is the ability, once everything's done, to download it. All right, any questions? I'm probably gonna do a short screencast of how to create a wiki. So, I'm sure some of you I know have seen them, where it's just like 3 minutes of me breezing through how to create it and what it looks like as an after product in the shell, so that you can use that probably as a resource.
Krysti, I did have a question. So I saw that in the left-hand side, you already had wikis. So
Yeah.
like when you created the wiki, does it then show up there, or how do you link those two? Like, how do you link in the menu bar to the one you've created?
So all you have to do you want me to show you live?
Yes, please.
Okay, no problem. Let me get a screen share going, and then I can show you how to do it. I'm going to go ahead and go to, I'm just trying to find one of my shells. I'll go to this one that I'm not using. All right, so for this shell, because I know this one doesn't have wikis already, on the toolbar, if you hit the plus sign here and then just add a tool link, you can call it wikis or whatever you want, and then select wikis from the type.
So then when you create the wiki, is it linked to that?
Yeah, it automatically goes to this tool. Yep.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah. So then when you're in the content, like when you're under creating material and you click wiki, it'll automatically be under there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Any other questions? All right. This is like the shortest talk I've ever given, and I was trying to make sure I stayed on time and was of your time. But all right. Well, then that's all that I have for you guys. You're welcome. Thank you for joining me so late in the afternoon. All right. Take care and have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.